Hello everybody, my name is Will from You Know Nothing, and today we're going to be talking about and explaining some of the best moments that happened in Season 7, Episode 5, Eastwatch. Now there's not actually that many episodes of Season 7 left, so if you just found my channel, please consider subscribing and you can stay up to date with all the new Game of Thrones episodes and theories, etc, etc. Now as always, be careful for spoilers and let's jump right into the episode. Or should I say rise, like Bronn and Jaime did, from the water. That seemed like it should be like a couple of meters deep at most, but as soon as Jaime fell into it in the last episode, it was like the Marianas Trench. But it starts off just as the last one ended. Bronn and Jaime surface from the water, which is great because I love them as characters, it's amazing. But how did Daenerys just forget about them and let them escape? And how did Tyrion just be like, you know what, my brother just almost died then. He could possibly be dead, but, you know, we won't mention it. We'll just pretend that he teleported back to King's Landing, shall we? But it moves over to some of the shots that we saw from the trailer for the episode, with Daenerys looking powerful as anything, looking over the Lannister soldiers. And we meet the end for Randyll and Dickon Tarly, who refuse to bend the knee to Dany. And we all know what she does to people who don't bend the knee, apart from Jon Snow. So Randyll kind of sacrifices himself, thinking that Dickon's going to bend the knee and carry on the name of House Tarly, because I don't think he really wants Sam to be the technical leader of House Tarly, even though Sam is still part of the Night's Watch. So he isn't technically the leader of House Tarly, but he is really, and I don't think Randyll would want Sam to be the leader. So he wants Dickon to bend the knee, but Dickon tries to be a hero, and they both end up getting burnt to a crisp.
Dracarys.
Now we'll move on to a part of the episode that they were kind of hyping up before the episode came out, and it's Jon meeting Drogon. So they were bigging up the scene because we know of his heritage being Targaryen, etc, etc. And I thought it was going to be an epic moment where possibly we get to see Jon ride a dragon, but it wasn't that. He just literally touched him and Drogon smelt him. So I hope Jon had some pretty good aftershave on. The deodorant was smelling good as Drogon seemed to like him. Nothing really special happened. But it was pretty cool. We get to see Jon meeting the dragons for the first time. So as I predicted in my last video, Jorah Mormont comes back and meets Daenerys. And I'd say that the sexual tension between Jorah and Daenerys is far greater than the tension between her and Jon Snow. Whew. But he kind of gets friend-zoned again. I think there's a moment where he looks like he's going in for a kiss, but then she just goes for a hug, and then he leaves again. So not too much is going on at Winterfell in terms of like the whole story. But Bran is walking into some ravens north of Eastwatch, and he goes over a cliff and he sees the whole army of the dead, which looked terrifying. And the way that this was shot was actually really cool with all the cinematography and the way the music came in as he went over and saw all the dead. But I think it's really cool how the Night's King looks at him and he can kind of sense that Bran's walking there and he takes him out of a walk. So I wonder if we see some kind of psychic battle, a warg off, where Bran's in the blue corner and the Night King is in the red corner. We also get some pretty cool scenes with Samwell, Tarly and the Maesters at the Citadel. Sam is getting very angry, as the Maesters aren't taking him seriously or taking the threat of the White Walkers seriously. They kind of still think that it's not real, which just isn't further from the truth. These people are supposed to be smart. But then as Sam and Gilly are just reading through a couple of the scripts, Gilly's going on about random numbers like 15,000 blah 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 steps in some kind of sept in King's Landing. And Sam's getting really annoyed. He's annoyed that the Maesters didn't listen to him. Now he's annoyed that Gilly's just piping off random facts when she should be focusing on defeating the White Walkers. And Gilly drops an absolute bomb that some people who are just like casual readers or casual viewers of the show might not have even noticed that this was in the episode.
Issued an annulment for Prince Rhaegar and remarried him to someone else at the same time in a secret ceremony in Dawn.
So an annulment is a legal procedure which cancels a marriage, and in this case, it's between Rhaegar Targaryen and Elia Martell. And then Gilly goes on to say that Rhaegar actually then married in secret his true love, who was Lyanna Stark. We still don't know how Lyanna felt about this, but I assume that she liked him too. But Sam kind of interrupts what she's saying. He doesn't listen to her properly. But Sam, this is huge, man. You need to listen to this. But this means that Jon Snow isn't actually a bastard. He's a legitimate son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, which consequently means that he has the greatest claim to the throne, even more so than Daenerys. As Rhaegar was the prince who had the greatest claim to the throne, then his son would have the greatest claim after him, who is Jon Snow. Daenerys, being his auntie, comes after him. So Gilly has effectively just dropped and found one of the most crucial pieces of information possibly on the whole show, and no one seemed to notice. Back at Dragonstone, Dany and her squad decide that they need to get a White Walker, or one of the army of the dead and bring them down to King's Landing. Now, it's actually Tyrion who comes up with this plan, but just the thought of bringing a White Walker and just like holding his hand, walking down the King's Road, it just doesn't seem like it's going to go to plan to me. So Jaime somehow just makes it back to King's Landing magically, like I said, without Daenerys capturing him, and they meet with Cersei, and Cersei drops another bomb. She tells him that she's pregnant. The cynic in me tells me that she's lying and possibly just trying to keep Jaime close because she knows that he's like realizing that she's a bit evil, bit of a psychopath, and she's just pretending that she's having his baby to keep him closer to her for the final wars to come. But if she is telling the truth and she has the baby or something happens to the baby, then she's going to go even more batshit crazy than she already is. And the prophecy that Maggie the Witch told Cersei, we got a glimpse of this on the TV show, I think it was the first episode of season 5, where it says Cersei will have 3 children. She's already had 3 children. So, going by that, Cersei's either lying or the child is going to die before she gets to give birth to it. So Tyrion realises that he needs to speak to Jaime, who can then speak to Cersei about the White Walkers. So it lands to Davos, the smuggler, to go to King's Landing. And these few scenes are some of my favourite in the whole episode. So we'll talk about Tyrion and Jaime first. We get Bronn, who's a Lannister Employee of the Month, creating a meeting for them where they meet for the first time and they don't seem to embrace each other that much. It's kind of a bit of a weird meeting. But I like the fact that they met together because Jaime's basically the only person who's ever really loved Tyrion. And I think Tyrion loves Jaime back as well. So Davos has his own things that he needs to do in Flea Bottom. Now he goes on to go and look in some blacksmiths to possibly find our man Gendry. So he finds him and he drops the phrase, "Oh, I thought you'd still be rowing," which is absolutely insane. Shows the writers, like, they look to the community, and that's what people have been saying. All the memes all the time with Gendry just still rowing. So I was writing my predictions that Gendry was coming back, but I wasn't writing how it would happen. So Davos going to get him from King's Landing in this situation seems definitely the best way. But Gendry seems really, really up for coming back with Sir Davos, and he can't wait to get out of King's Landing. And then we get to see Gendry use his Warhammer, which is pretty sick, because it links in to the end of the episode where they walk north of the wall. So when they finally get back to Dragonstone, Gendry meets Jon Snow, and Sir Davos is like, pretend to be this person. But then Gendry walks in and goes, "I'm Gendry, bastard son of Robert Baratheon." And him and Jon Snow seem to kind of get on instantly, probably because of their similarities of being a bastard, and that their perceived fathers, Ned Stark and Robert Baratheon, were like best mates. So back at Littlefinger, probably one of my least favourite characters, like as an actual person, but he's a good character for loving to hate. Littlefinger is being a big fat snake again with Arya, is using Arya's skills against her, and he plants a letter in his bedside for Arya to find, which is the main reason for this, is to try and split Arya and Sansa apart and make them kind of hate each other. So if you don't know what the letter actually was, it was a letter that Sansa wrote in the first season that Cersei and the Lannisters made her write when she was writing back home to Winterfell to tell them to come to the King's Landing and bend the knee to the Lannisters. So Arya's definitely not going to like this, and Littlefinger knows. However, I reckon when they actually speak about this, or Arya confronts Sansa, they'll realise that Sansa was made to write the letter by the Lannisters, and they'll realise what Littlefinger's doing, and I think that possibly could be the end of Littlefinger, and it's his own fault for being a snake. So the last scene of the episode is Jon Snow and his Suicide Squad all meeting up at Eastwatch by the Sea. We have the Hound and the Brotherhood Without Banners who are locked up, and Jorah, Gendry, they all meet up together. They all decide that because they're breathing, they're still on the same team. And the episode ends with them walking north of the wall, ready to find the White Walkers, the army of the dead. And as season 9, usually, the penultimate episode, is like a massive episode in Game of Thrones. All season 9s have been huge. Season 6 is now the penultimate episode because there's only 7 episodes. I reckon season 6 is going to be huge. So make sure you check out my season 7, episode 6 preview video and predictions of what's going to happen soon. If you've got any theories that you want me to do on Game of Thrones in the meantime as well, before the next episode, let me know in the comments down below. If you've enjoyed this episode and this video as well, if it's helped you out in any way explaining stuff, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. My name is Will from You Know Nothing, and I'll see you all on my next video.